The views and opinions expressed by the guests, callers, and hosts on this and all Rense Radio Network programs do not necessarily reflect or agree with those of the network, its commercial sponsors, its radio station affiliates, or Internet broadcast platforms. In these controversial times, we believe the First Amendment and freedom of the press are absolutely essential to the survival of our nation. Thank you. And now, enjoy the program.
It's time to hitch them up and move them out. Another week is here, Monday already. We're going to talk about a number of things during the next 3 hours, many of which you will have never heard before, some of which will be a refresher course of things that we have talked about on this program for many years. Now, I want to ask you just straight away, as a common sense kind of a thing, would you invite cancer into your body? A fatal form of cancer. Can you imagine a nation state inviting a fatal form of culture, geopolitical hatred into its borders and give it everything that money can buy? No, that's another definition of insanity. Well, that's what we're doing here. And by we, I'm talking about the United States federal government, the U.S. Department of State, with the full understanding, if not direct aiding and abetting by the Commander-in-Chief, in terms of the United Nations Refugee Resettlement Program, which has been bringing in Muslims into this country for years and years, under cover of darkness, literally, under cover of a media that is absolutely controlled and will tell the people, the sheeple, nothing that they're not supposed to hear. It's becoming an obscenity. This program, and I think many of you will remember the video I played by the woman whistleblower in Missouri, who was working for the UN Refugee Resettlement Program until she found out what was really going on. And what is going on is the wholesale importation of Middle Eastern Muslims, Sub-Saharan Black African alleged Muslims, Stone Age Muslims at that, and they're bringing them in nonstop and placing them in Middle America, small towns, medium towns, big towns, cities. There are about 200,000 or more Sub-Saharan Black African Somalis in Minneapolis. The city's destroyed. The cops don't even want to go there anymore. Islam, if you don't know it, calls for your death, unless you happen to be a Muslim listening. It calls for the extinction of Western civilization. 2.2 billion Muslims on the planet. And all I know, there are moderates, and there are extremists, and there are liberals, and it doesn't matter. If they're Muslim, they believe in the Quran, the rules, the regulations laid out by the Quran, are not to be played with. When the bell rings, 99% of them will stand up and answer it. And the bell will be the signal to destroy all non-Muslims. It's a big story. We've talked about it many, many times. And I'm very glad to have a gentleman on now who is immersed in this subject of insanity. And again, I bring back the mental image of introducing cancer into our nation. Fatal terminal cancer. That's what Trump is doing. That's what Obama was doing. It doesn't matter who's in the White House. It doesn't, you know that. We are marked for extermination. And I'm not exaggerating. Our guest's name is Craig Winn, and he is very devoutly committed to the truth. He doesn't mince words. Islam is evil, not just radical Islam, all of Islam. All you have to do is read the Quran. Read a Cliff's Notes version of the Quran. Understand what it calls for. I've referred to it as a sex and death cult for a long time, and I'm not far off the mark, if at all. Craig, welcome to the program. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure. I've probably done 5,000 interviews on Islam. Haven't done one in a long time because I've moved on. I grew weary of telling people over and over again the truth about Islam. And I will tell you, Jeff, that in those 5,000 interviews, I've never heard any host as articulate and as forthright, as truthful, as knowledgeable as you were in your introduction. I applaud you. I didn't know there was a host out there that knew these things or would say these things. There were only two nits, and they're so small as to be insignificant that I think that you said in your opening that I would challenge ever so slightly just from a correction point of view. One is I think there's closer to 1.5 billion Muslims than 2.5 billion. Not that that matters a whole lot.
Right.
There really is no such thing as a moderate Muslim. It's a complete myth. There are just good Muslims and bad Muslims. And the kind of Islam you described is the Islam of a good Muslim. And what I would say is a good Muslim is universally a bad person. It is impossible to be a good Muslim and not be a terrorist. Muhammad was a terrorist. He orders all Muslims to be terrorists. He says if you're not a jihadist, then you cease to be a Muslim. So it's simply there are good Muslims and bad Muslims, and there's no one that Allah hates more than a peaceful Muslim. But other than that, boy, you have it nailed. And what's so surprising, Jeff, is that most ignorant people who profess to be enlightened would describe your introduction as being racist, and there was nothing racist about it.
No.
The problem isn't Arabs. The problem isn't Indonesians. The problem is the religion of Islam. It's responsible for 99.5% of all terrorist acts perpetrated in the world today.
99. Wow. Yeah, not surprised. I've tried to get this message across, Craig, and you said you've moved on from it. I can understand your frustration with thousands and thousands of programs. I don't know what it is about Americans who don't seem to understand that they are facing annihilation, and they are allowing this to go on without saying so much as a word. Now, I understand. I give them a little bit of a pass because the media lies. They don't call it programming for nothing. They're mind controlled. They're programmed. They don't get it. But I'm trying to tell them, and I have put this out for years, you are facing extinction. It's not a joke.
Yeah,
now they've morphed it into this.
Can't occupy America, can't defeat America, but it can destroy America. You know, the religion is extremely dumbing. It is easily the dumbest religion ever conceived. The Quran is the worst book ever written, and it stupefies those that it infects. They aren't capable of designing the kind of weapons that could invade and occupy the country. But what they can do is destroy it. 9/11 should have been a wake-up call. But what we've experienced since 9/11 should even have been more alarming. When we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq, essentially making bad situations worse with this misnomer that we could instill democracy and that we were ridding the world of a bad dictator and we were going to make things better. And of course, that all turned to mud. We made a bad situation worse and turned the entire world of Islam against us. It was the dumbest thing we ever could have done. So we are putting ourselves in a position where Muslims will do everything they can to destroy us. And the question most people should be asking, beyond the fact that is fundamental Islam, the purest form of Islam, the Muhammad-inspired type of Islam, the Islam of the Quran, is it a terrorist dogma? And therefore, the question is, does Islam corrupt the terrorists such that they become mass murderers? Or are the terrorists and jihadists corrupting their religion? That's why right after 9/11 I met with Al-Qaeda. I think I'm the only American to meet with Al-Qaeda and survive the incident and ask them directly, why are you flying planes into our buildings? They quoted the Quran and Hadith, and so I was left with the option, Jeff, I could either be like most people and say, it can't be true. They just cherry pick the worst verses out of context and they're just slandering what is normally a good religion. Or they're right. And so I devoted about 10 years of my life to doing something no one had ever done before. I took the Quran, I reordered it chronologically using the historical hadith. Those are citations from Muhammad and his companions. Right. The earliest two hadith collections, and I used them to reorder the Quran chronologically and to set it into the context of Muhammad's life, and wrote the book called Prophet of Doom. I'm not trying to sell it. It's available in its entirety for free. It's read around the world.
Where do we get it?
Yeah, prophetofdoom.net. And again, I have nothing to sell. It's there entirely free. You won't even find an ad there. Prophetofdoom.net. And by taking the Quran and ordering it chronologically and setting it in the context of Muhammad's life, the book, which is just utter nonsense. It's just gibberish, evil, maniacal.
I've had a couple of videos that I played of ex-Muslims. Actually, there were 2 or 3 young women, and they are just enraged about what's in that text that people don't understand, and they're trying to warn anyone who will listen. They say it's all lies, it's evil, and I want to go back to my other issue. How can a religion condone female genital mutilation? And how can so-called feminists not stand up and flood the streets by the hundreds of thousands and millions and scream about this? It's beyond Stone Age butchery. This is inhuman.
250 million Muslim girls were mutilated by their own mothers. And it is inhuman. It's disgusting. The religion treats women as if, you may have heard my young puppy, their wolf in the background. I apologize for that, but I treat my dog better than any Muslim treats a woman. Was conceived to give men total authority over women. That's why the Islamic paradise is all about raping virgins.
Correct. Correct.
So just the fact that we as a civil society ought to be outspoken against and literally hate any doctrine that would treat 750 million people, every woman in Islam, as an animal. Even if they don't care enough to free themselves of it, we should be enormously bothered by that. We should not only be bothered by the fact that 99% of terrorist acts are perpetrated by Muslims, we should be bothered that that religion degrades women.
When you look at, yes, of course, when one looks at FGM, female genital mutilation, most Western minds, for some reason, it's so unpleasant, they just don't care, one or the other. But I ran a picture of a little girl being, at the moment of being butchered, And the pain on her face, she knew. She was 8 or 9 years old. She knew. And people were writing to me, please take that down. Please. They weren't yelling hate or anything. They were saying, please take that down. No, it needed to stay up. People need to face this head on and understand what they're doing. And let's take it another step further.
Fair enough to oppose it.
Has anyone introduced a federal law in either the House or the Senate to outlaw this and make it a first-class felony? Nope, ain't going to happen. It's not PC. What about the millions, and I'm not exact, millions of European and United Kingdom, Great Britain women, children, I'm talking about little boy children too, who have been raped by these people, if you can use the term.
Have you heard the term bachiba?
No.
It's called boys' play. In Afghanistan, I don't know if you know it or not, but it's not a very well-known fact, but we've actually lost about 5 times more soldiers as a result of Afghanistan.
Yeah. I'm aware of that. Yes, I'm aware.
Vietnam because of committing suicide. 350,000 Americans have committed suicide as a result of what they experienced in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the reason that they committed suicide is what they witnessed there. Of course, they were sent in on a lie that we're going to defend the people, we're going to fight on behalf of the people, and we're going to free them for democracy. And that was an utter lie. They never fought an army. They fought fundamentalist Muslims who were just civilians. But in Afghanistan, it was the most tragic thing that as we would free a community from the Taliban, then the Muslim elders would come into that town, and the first thing they would do is they'd pick the prettiest boy, under the age of 10. They would chain him to a bed, and they would gang rape him for week after week.
Yeah.
We play.
Yeah, understood. When we talk about rape, I'm a man, you're a man. No man can really understand what rape does to the psyche, to the soul, to the mind, to the consciousness. I really do view it as a form of murder. I don't know how a woman could ever recover herself, aside from the fact she's probably been given STDs, perhaps HIV, which is fatal, perhaps other issues which will kill her in time. I view these as murders. In the gang rapes in Europe, and especially Sweden, Norway, Scandinavia, anywhere, it doesn't matter. The total is over 1 million.
Slaves, the women in Syria and the women in Nigeria that were kidnapped and treated as sex slaves and gang raped 10, 15, 20 times a day.
Yeah. You see, these are murders in my view. And now in Germany, because of the communists who are running it, and in many other countries, it's all about communism, ultimately. They are telling people, if you report this, you may be booked as the perp. You're not the victim. They'll turn it around. You've heard all this before. This is so crazy. This is so insane.
But
it goes against every tenet of Western enlightened civilization.
In Saudi Arabia, the royal family and the princes all have dungeons in their castles filled with Western women. They are lured in on false promises. Their passports are taken. They'll never see the light of day again. And they're not only sex slaves. They're there to torture for the amusement of the royal family. The Crown Prince Mohammed,
MBS,
was his name when he was in the United States. A friend of mine used to hang out with him before he became the Crown Prince, and he would brag of the number of women that he killed and the enjoyment he had in killing them. And this is the man that we're providing $100 billion worth of U.S. weapons.
Jerry Kushner's buddy, Donald Trump's pal, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. That's what we're talking about here. See, Americans Trump
wants to sell them $100 billion worth of U.S. weapons.
Of course. It's all about
money. Why would you do that? I mean, he took a reporter from the Washington Post, Khashoggi, and not only murdered him, but dismembered him.
Yeah, and I understand they boiled him, what was left of him, in some kind of acid. There's nothing left of him. They just eradicated him.
What he did was authorized in Islam. That's the problem. People have no clue. I don't think it's within the psyche of most Americans to have an appreciation of how bad Muhammad was. You spoke of rape as being a horrible offense, akin to murder. I think there's something far worse than rape: pedophilia. Muhammad was a pedophile when he was 53 years old. He had sex routinely with a 9-year-old girl. His first sexual encounter with her when she was 6. And he had many children who were part of his harem after he passed the age of 55, girls under the age of 9 years old. Pedophilia is probably the single worst thing that we can perpetrate on another person.
It's not the province of Islam either, unfortunately. It is rampant at all levels of the highest form of power and influence in government, geopolitics, in the Western world.
It is. Epstein finally took his own life, and Bill Clinton was on his airplane, I don't know the number of times, 12, 15, 18 times, the Lolita Express.
That we know about.
He provided young underage women to powerful leaders, but there's a difference in Islam. And when you do it in America, well, it's a horrible thing to do. It's a crime. And if you get caught, you're going to be sent to jail for a long time. In Islam, it isn't a crime.
It's expected.
A 70-year-old man can rape as many 5 to 10-year-old girls as he wishes. It's never a crime. Because Muhammad did it, it can't be a crime because Muhammad's the example that they follow.
Understand that those of you listening, there is no hate here at all. There is only fact. We're talking about reality. That's what we do here. Craig Winn is my guest. Stand by, Craig. We'll be right back. And I hope all of you out there will take the opportunity. Give that website again, please. Prophetofdoom.com.
Prophetofdoom.net.
Prophetofdoom.net. Prophetofdoom.net.
Absolutely.
.net. All right.
1,000-page
Go look at the book. You have any doubts? Go look at the book. And if you look on the right-hand side of the homepage down in Featured Stories, you'll find also a section where I have 3 or 4 videos of mostly younger women in their 20s who have escaped Islam and who have tried to go public with the reality of it. You need to see that. You need to understand. And every time Donald Trump and his organization, just like Obama, bring in another plane load of these people, these Muslims, they are contributing to the end of our nation, our culture, our heritage, our way of life, everything we have held sacred for so long. Every bit of it.
Jeff, can I just add one thing that's really important?
Yeah.
It is important for us to expose and condemn Islam, and we will return and we'll talk about the evidence as to why we should do so. But never pick up a gun. Don't do what the idiots have done and go into a mosque and shoot people. Fill your mind with accurate facts so that you can convey the truth in an effective way. Use your words. Don't use bullets. All you're going to do is make the situation worse.
Oh, yeah.
You choose to fight it with bullets and bombs. Choose to fight it with words.
All right, very good. Thank you. Craig Winn and I will be back with more in just a few minutes. All right, let's get right back to it. I've got a lot I want to get into this next half hour, talking with Craig Winn. Craig, if I might have 2 minutes of our time, I want to play this little clip. It's just a portion of a clip of a young woman who got away from the yoke and the onus of Islam and wants to warn people. This is very good.
Hey everyone. I have been putting off making a video for a long time, and I have been trying to control my temper in my new effort to be a better person. However, seeing as to how people won't stop being dimwits, I'm gonna have to spell this out for you. Islam is not a race, it's a religion. Therefore, when I say Muslims have to believe in Muhammad, their prophet, and follow him as their ultimate role model, it doesn't mean I'm a racist. Because Islam is not a race. If you believe in Muhammad and Allah, you're a Muslim. If you follow Muhammad as your ultimate role model, you're a Muslim. What did Muhammad do? He was a rapist, a pedophile, a mass murderer, not to mention a warmonger, liar, cheater, thief, adulterer. He took in hundreds of sex slaves, spilled plenty of blood all around the world, all on his name, all on his hands, all because of his teachings. And if you fall for this jihadist self-betterment crap, see, I said I wasn't going to get angry. You deserve anything that comes to you.
Okay, I'll stop it right there. You get the idea. You can find this on the right-hand side down in Featured Stories. Brave woman. I don't know what the repercussions to her for this were, but they do not like the truth being put out there. Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, first of all, I don't think that woman was a Muslim because her pronunciation of the various Islamic terms was inconsistent with what a Muslim would have used. But other than one thing which he said is true, Muhammad did not have hundreds of sex slaves. He had somewhere just south of 20. Most were very young children. The worst of his sex slaves, however, weren't so much just the young children, is that when Muhammad would go into, and there were 3 Jewish communities, were farming communities mostly, that he had his goons attack, and they were just goons. It was like Genghis Khan and the robber baron mentality. They would kill the men. They would enslave the children, and then Muhammad would get first dibs as to what Jewish woman to rape, and then his men would play a game of lots to determine their picking order for what woman they got to rape and have as a sex slave. So Muhammad, by the admission of the Hadith, which are reports from Muhammad and his companions, raped 3 Jewish women, all of which are well known, and he had probably in the range of 18 to 20 sex slaves. He was, in fact, a pedophile. He was, in fact, a mass murderer. In fact, other than the term adulterer, every term that she used is a term that is found in Prophet of Doom. She most likely read Prophet of Doom. Prophet of Doom is the most comprehensive, the best documented, the most chronological presentation of the Islamic scriptures ever written. And I don't say that to brag. It's just a statement of fact. It's an extraordinary book. It's what's interesting, though, if I'm wrong, and this person really was a Muslim, the highest readership per capita of Prophet of Doom is in Iran.
Interesting.
The Islamic countries have the highest per capita readership of Prophet of Doom. It's not in America or Australia, because it's written in English. You would think that America, Australia, New Zealand, England would be the highest readership per capita. It's not even close. It's the Islamic countries, because huge percentages of people know that their religion is unbelievably violent and immoral and stupid and oppressive. So they want to
look at the stabbings and look at the Craig.
Good job of explaining.
Look at the prophetofdoom.net. It's free for all of you. Look at the stabbings in England now. This is subhuman behavior. The acid in the face attacks, the gang rape, the child grooming, all that. They're doing what they know how to do. This is what they do. And when you bring the black Africans from sub-Saharan Africa up here who claim to be Muslims, you can multiply it by even more in terms of its horrific impact on a first world civilization. I am just appalled at what I'm seeing.
Right. And it's impossible to be democratic in terms of your politics and be a good Muslim. The Quran is a dictatorial book. It tells Muslims to surrender to whomever is the dictator over them. The word Islam itself means submission. Submission to Allah.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that.
It's only depicted in hell, so it would be submission to Satan. It is a religion of submission, not of choice, and so democracy and Islam will never coexist.
When people wake up in the morning, Craig, and they look across the street, let's say there's apartment buildings across the street from their home, and they see people walking around in hijab and traditional dress, all of a sudden, they weren't there yesterday, They were placed there by the Refugee Resettlement Program.
Yeah.
Now, what are they supposed to do? Where can they go? There used to be two really good websites eminently available to people, Creeping Sharia and RefugeeResettlementWatch.org. You know the two sites. They've both been deplatformed by Google recently, of course,
it's very
because that's the agenda.
Maintain a site like Prophet of Doom. When I was doing 5 hours of talk radio a day, and for Prophet of Doom, after having written the book.
Wow.
It was Saudi Arabia in particular would do denial of service attacks on it. And I was spending tens of thousands of dollars a month to keep the site up because with denial of service attacks, your fees go astronomical. Because what they do is they have bots around the world will hit the site to draw so much bandwidth that no one can have access to it, and then you actually have to pay for the bandwidth access. So, for someone saying, you're slandering Islam for $1. No, I paid dearly to be able to tell you the truth, and I've endured 10,000 death threats to be able to tell you the truth. So I gained nothing for this, but I thought it was important that people knew the truth about Islam, and no one else was willing to explain it. So this is why I did what I did. But
Craig, it's all in the literature. It's all in
Islam.
There's nothing being made up here. These are the truthful facts as derived. You're a scholarly writer. You distilled it. You reorganized it. You made it presentable to the Western mind. There's nothing here that is hate inciting in any way. This is the truth about that alleged religion.
Can I challenge that just 1 second?
You can. Go right ahead.
You're obviously not politically correct. And I admire that about you. Political correctness would tell us that all we need to do is love everything, and if we just loved enough, there would be violence.
And we're all created equal, yeah. Right.
But the fact of the matter is, one of our great problems in the Western world is that we don't hate. We don't know what to hate or how to hate. There is really an extraordinarily important reason to hate. For example, you hate rape. I hate pedophilia. We both hate terrorism. These are things that are worthy of our disdain, and that if we find that there is a doctrine, a political or religious doctrine, that is motivating people to be pedophiles, to be rapists, to be terrorists, we ought to despise that. And if we don't despise it, we're not being moral. That doesn't mean we go off.
Yeah, hold on. That's great. Hold on. If we don't despise it, we're not being moral. You could not have said it better. 100% correct. I despise and loathe pedophilia, rape, anything that degrades women or little girls or little boys. And this is the number one organized way to do it. And I've never seen anything more horrific.
Islam, or you'll be ignorant of it. It is one of those. If you are not ignorant of Islam and you hate those things, you will hate Islam, because Islam inspires.
How else are we supposed to oppose satanic Luciferian evil than hate it? You can't intellectually dislike it. What a joke! We're not all created equal. Biggest lie that ever was perpetrated on people. We're all men and women are. Forget about it. Doesn't happen.
No, it's interesting. Satan's actual name is Halal bin Shakar. That's the name that he's presented with in the book of Isaiah, Yeshayah. And you know what is considered to be good in Islam? If you were to go to a store and you were to buy food, what they would call that food in Islam?
What?
Halal. It's the very name that Yahweh, which is God's one and only name, gave to Satan, Halal bin Shakar. And in Islam, halal is considered.
I know halal. That's where it came from. Oh my.
Yeah. Well, halal is Satan's name. That's how in your face Satan actually is, saying people are so stupid. I will use my name as the meaning of the definition of good in Islam, and people won't figure it out. Do you know Muhammad twice in his life admitted to being demon-possessed?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Twice. It's in the hadith, can't be denied by any Muslim.
So it's in the scripture there.
He committed suicide the first time he was demon-possessed, and at the end of his life, when he had his farewell sermon, he once again admitted that he was demon-possessed.
Wow. Muhammad, the prophet of doom. This is no exaggeration. All of you, when I made that little mental image the other day or the other minute about people waking up in the morning and seeing a bunch of Muslims living across the street, what are they supposed to do? Well, what can they do when their government has sold them out, stabbed them in the back, betrayed them to the highest level? What are they supposed to do? Move away, first of all, as quickly as they can, I would assume. But what recourse do we have under this communist regime, this politically correct communist regime that we are now under?
Well, I can give you the answer to the question. I don't think you or your listeners are going to like the answer, but I've given this a lot of thought, and I've been doing this now for 20 years, just shy of 20 years. There's nothing we can do to resolve the problem. We can't fix America. She's way too far gone. We can't fix Western Europe. She's way too far gone. There's nothing we can do to resolve the problem. But we can do a lot for ourselves and those we love. There really is a God. He is absolutely knowable. He's approachable. And so we can come to understand the evil nature of this doctrine, and that religions can be extraordinarily evil, and we can devote the time to the truth. So I've told you that for the last 5 or so years I haven't done many interviews on Islam because I've moved on. My passion now is translating the Dead Sea Scrolls out of Paleo-Hebrew into English and writing books on what I have learned in the process of doing so. There really is a lot of hope, but the hope is individual hope. You can save yourself from Islam, and you can save those you love through the truth, but you can't save your country.
I just lament what has been done to us, what we have allowed to be done to us, but I don't blame the people. They've really never had a chance. The game has been underway for a long time. The plans, the technology has been used to subvert and degrade and hegemonize the human free will that we used to have and rely upon to maintain our greatness of a culture that we used to have.
Jeff, doesn't have any value if you aren't willing to exercise good judgment.
Exercise it. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, if you don't care enough to learn the truth and process information in a rational, reasonable way so that you exercise good judgment and form reasonable, rational conclusions, free will doesn't do you a bit of good. And that's the problem with political correctness and its influence on education, is that we have absolutely destroyed a people's ability to think.
By design. This is all by design.
The prophet of doom is downright. Yeah. It's constantly hacked by Muslims there. They can't refute it. It's been read around the world. No one can refute it because all it does is cite the Islamic sources. So what they do is they hack it and bring it down.
That's same old technique. Here's I got to read something here. I've got to find this. If I can, just in a minute. Keep talking. I've got to look this up. 1.8 billion on the planet. I did read 2.2 billion at one point. I've checked since you mentioned that. I'm coming up with 1.8 billion, several references to that.
Yeah, because they're reproducing like rabbits. A Muslim could have 4 wives, plus they have the 4th spot is rotating, so they impregnate a lot of women, and the population is growing much faster than the non-Muslim population. So that number is possible. It was, as of about 3 or 4 years ago, 1.5 million, but I would not argue with 1.8.
All right, here's this little piece. I found it, sent in by one of our listeners who knows a career airline stewardess. She started out with Braniff Airlines a long time ago. She's been at it for plenty of time to know what's going on. These airliners, all I guess from many different airlines, are chartered by the U.S. federal government, taxpayer dollars, to fly these Muslims in from the Middle East, but primarily from sub-Saharan Africa, and a lot of them from the Democratic Republic of Congo. My view is they want and already have Ebola in this country. That's why they're doing it. They want it here. There's no surprise to you. All right, here's the note I got.
Okay.
He's tried to get this woman to come on the program here. I've tried to get her to come on, but she's an older flight attendant and is afraid to. She has repeatedly told me how now this is after picking up a load of these people. Remember, most of them with the clothes on their back from deepest, darkest sub-Saharan Africa. She has repeatedly told me how they smell, strap their entire belongings to their bodies, sit in the seats. Apparently adults and kids constantly go to the bathroom, in the halls, in the aisle of these airliners, and refuse to use the bathrooms. The cleaning crews refuse and quit because of the cleanup being so vile. She has told me it is like a nightmare, and the smell is unbearable. So there you go. These people will
by the way,
never
it doesn't change
use...
wealth. The royal families of these countries are the same way. One of my friends was a banker, and he used to bring in the sheiks from Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates, and they would rent the top floor of one of the fanciest hotels. They'd bring their sheep in, and by the time they were gone, the place had to be fumigated and was ultimately destroyed.
Oh, the sheep were slaughtered, I'm sure.
It is. Yeah. It's a disgusting religion. The men are disgusting, and the women have no rights. They're just abused. They're sex objects.
Well, they're made to sleep on the floor next to the bed of the man. I had a video up a couple of weeks ago. I think many of you saw it. It was a Muslim wedding, and the guy, I forget, I guess he gave her a bite of the wedding cake, and she held out a piece of the cake and then playfully diverted it from his mouth. He hauled off and slammed her right on the side of the face, knocked her silly, right there in the video. That's how they treat them.
Acceptable in Islam. Muhammad's farewell address, he says you can strip women naked, you can lock them in the closet, you can deny them food, and you can beat them because they are nothing more than domesticated animals. Muhammad would say that he went to hell, and while in hell he found that the majority of the inhabitants were women because they were not appreciative of their husbands, and that for fun Allah would hang women by their breasts on meat hooks.
Yeah, good time in the old town tonight, sounds like.
Good time in the old town tonight, yeah. You want to invite the worst religion in the history of humankind in terms of the treatment of women, and you want it to influence your community, then what you need is more Muslims.
We're in trouble here. I've been trying to say this for years, and I think most of my audience, you people out there, wherever you are, understand that. We have no support whatsoever from the political machine that allegedly represents the public. It's a joke. Anybody with a brain understands that now. We no longer have a representative democracy. That's a joke. We have a republic, but it's falling apart by the day. We don't have much left except the individuals, and those are the people we must always reach out to and try to help. Prophetofdoom.net. Don't forget it.
People can learn the truth. The truth is enormously empowering. It's liberating. It's empowering. It's enriching. I would encourage people to know the truth. There's really nothing more important today.
Please also remember that Islam prohibits, think about it, prohibits any Muslim from assimilating into Western culture. Prohibits them from assimilating under sentence of death. You're selling out. You die.
You know what happens?
You violate the precepts.
Recants the religion and says they don't want to be a Muslim anymore.
You die. You're dead.
You die.
That's right.
You know, in Islam, a Muslim man can marry as many non-Muslim women as he wishes because it's all about conquest and subjugation. But a Muslim woman cannot marry a non-Muslim man because the Muslims own them. It's
people,
really
we've got to try to help those who don't understand. Get the book, prophetofdoom.net. It's free. Craig spent years putting this together. It is invaluable. We are being invaded, aided and abetted by both political parties. It doesn't matter. All of them are involved with it. All of them. You have to start thinking at some point that this is a Luciferian government by people who are not Americans. Not anymore. They have allegiances to other value sets. They're not Americans.
There's more truth to that than you might imagine. It's But it's not that so much they aren't Americans, is that their interests are not aligned with the people's interests. Very selfish interests.
Greed. And then it's the whole thing is pedophilia, blackmail. It's what? Come on, Epstein is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
we know that.
But you look at, you speak of blackmail. There's one institution in America that can legally blackmail anyone. You know what that is? The Justice Department.
DOJ.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
That's how. If you look at the Russian probe, everyone that was sentenced was blackmailed. You either rat out Trump, or we're going to attack you with and indict you with these offenses. And listen, the U.S. laws are so complicated that everybody that's ever accomplished anything with their life has violated many of them, even not knowingly. And so they threaten to indict you unless you turn tail, and that is, by any standard, is blackmail. And yet the Justice Department uses it every day.
I agree. Craig, thank you.
One of the most important things you talk about the government was what Snowden found out is that violating the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. government is spying on all of us. Our emails, our telephone calls.
So Trump has made a mockery of the Constitution. His first responsibility is to protect his country with all means accessible from invasion. He's doing that.
Well,
Come on,
he's not the only one.
No, of course not. He's just the most visible.
Was every bit as bad. The only thing that makes Trump unique in this regard is he's likely a narcissist, which makes him very, very dangerous. But he's
even more so than Obama. I agree. Let me take a moment real quick, Craig, to thank a friend of ours, Jerry McLaughlin, who is one of the best PR people in America, and he was able to arrange this tonight. And I hope all of you hearing this appreciate what Craig Winn has done. I think you can understand he carried a heavy burden with this book. It's out there for you. Get it, read it, share it. Learn your enemy. You've got to. Any final comment, Craig, real quick?
Oh, well, boy, I echo your enthusiasm for Jerry McLaughlin. He is an extraordinarily courageous and wonderful man. He is my very good friend. I've known him for a better part now of 20 years. So he is exactly as you have stated. It's an extraordinary individual.
Very good. Craig, thank you. I hope to talk to you again. Maybe we'll do a Dead Sea Scrolls program. I'd like that. That'd be fun.
But I think you'd find that fascinating. Even more revealing, shockingly revealing, than what we've been talking about thus far.
I'm very interested in that. Well, let's book it. Okay, I'll talk to you soon. You be well.
Thank you, Jeff.
Take care. Good night. Craig Winn, W-I-N-N.